Hey everyone, welcome to Trevor. I'm Trevor. Wanted to start doing the show again. I took a break for a while there, just life getting in the way. And so with this show, I'm hoping to cut down the amount of time that people need to take in order to find out what's happening in the House of Commons and question period. This particular show, I'm going to have 8 different sections. Unfortunately, my little segment bar thing on the side of the screen here, I spent about 45 minutes only to still not get it to work. So I've ended up just with a text file with the 8 different segments, and I'll just show it at the beginning rather than for each particular segment. And the idea is I'm going to give commentary on the different sections. So a little different than you see in the corporate media. They basically just pick the story that they know they can run with to get views and increase ad revenues. Again, I'm not partisan, particularly to any party. Don't mind calling any single party out on anything that they're saying, and that's essentially what I'm planning to do here. And with that, this being a highlight show, let's give it a go. So 8 segments here: housing, inflationary deficits, corporate greed, carbon tax impact, reducing costs, Canadians are hurting, no GST on new home builds, housing half measures, and the CPC let their 2 new members speak today, the very first day in the House of Commons, and I just thought that was kind of cool. So start the video here, and we'll hear the first segment with Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau bantering back and forth.
Mr. Speaker, after the summer that these Liberals have had, even the Prime Minister must admit that he's not worth the cost. 8 years after he promised to make housing more affordable, he doubled the cost, doubled the rent, doubled mortgage payments, doubled the needed down payment. Then he said housing's not his job, and then he panicked when he plummeted in the polls and recycled promises that he'd broken 6 years earlier. Mr. Speaker, it took him 8 years to cause this housing hell. How long will it take to fix it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, we said we'd work with municipalities to get housing built faster, and that's exactly what we're doing right across the country, including, for example, with the City of London, where we've got a deal done that fast-tracks the creation of over 2,000 additional housing units over the next 3 years, builds thousands more in the years to come. We're doing this by cutting red tape, fixing outdated zoning policies, and building more homes faster. This is our first deal, but I promise, not the last.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Just to stop there to begin with, I find it interesting how when Poilievre was in opposition, nothing was the government's fault kind of thing. Now in power, everything's the government's fault, right? Which is kind of ridiculous because we do have a market, and that market dictates the prices on the goods and services that we buy, right? And Trudeau, oddly enough, is basically saying Pierre Poilievre's plan this past year, but he's using different wording to have that exact same plan. And I'll even go for as far as saying, if you look at the WEF goals, their housing plans match exactly what the WEF goals are.
Speaker, he's building bureaucracy, not building homes. In fact, his inflationary deficits drive up interest rates, according to former Liberal Finance Minister John Manley. And that ensures that it's harder not only to buy homes, but to build them. Today we got the devastating news that not only are we not increasing home building was down in August, 18 months after his so-called accelerator was brought into place. But when will the Prime Minister realize that he's not worth the cost, get out of the way, and build homes, not bureaucracy?
Fair enough. Prime Minister.
Speaker, the opposition leaders bickering won't help get houses built. Our plan does. The Minister of Housing wrote the Mayor of Calgary offering to partner with the city if they made necessary changes for more affordable housing. And just this Saturday, the City of Calgary approved a plan for reducing zoning red tape and building housing by public transit.
So is that not exactly what Poilievre has been saying for months now? about building housing along transit. Isn't that what the WF is calling for? Isn't that what the United Nations is calling for? Housing like that it basically condenses our populations.
This is a step in the right direction, and we know together we can build more apartments for students to rent and more homes for families to grow in.
When?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, all he has delivered is an economy that built fewer homes last year than were built in 1972.
That's brutal.
And this year, housing construction is expected to drop further by 32%. Data from August showed that home building was down again.
Well, immigration goes up.
Drive up interest rates, which make it harder for builders to finance their construction and harder for Canadians to afford a mortgage. So what will he finally do what he promised to do 8 years ago, and that is balance the budget to bring down interest rates and inflation?
So, isn't this recent announcement from the Liberals exactly what the Conservative Party are wanting? We're talking about lower taxes, right? Well, dropping the GST, so the Liberals are putting this through as a motion this week to drop the GST on the new home builds. So I'd expect the Conservatives would just jump to agreeing to this, right? I mean, there may be some amendments along the way, but this should be able to get pushed through pretty quickly.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We're focused on delivering real results, while the Leader opposite is focused on empty slogans and picking fights. In fact, when he was in charge of housing, he bungled projects like the Toronto Line 1 extension, which to this day has no housing near a number of its stations.
So why didn't you do something?
We are actually linking public transit dollars to apartments and housing density, and we're doing so without the Conservative plan to restrict access to abortion, to deny the impact of climate change, and put more assault weapons in our streets.
Using that abortion tagline again, when it's not really reality of anything that's in Paul Revere's government, is just absolutely ridiculous. Probably talk about this in one of the later segments, but Canada already has 18 different housing programs, right? And Trudeau has said that housing is not a federal responsibility, right? So now we're coming in potentially program number 19, right, with the GST possibly being removed from new home builds. So it's just a never-ending circle with Trudeau. Like, when are we going to get these housing? So next up we got Jagmeet Singh.
Member for Burnaby South.
20 months, Canadians have been dealing with high grocery bills, and neither the Leader of the Opposition nor the Prime Minister have the courage to mention the true culprit, the corporate greed, which is driving up prices. In fact, when there's a chance to publicly show up and hold these CEOs to account, neither of them even bothered to show up. The Leader of the Opposition even gave tax breaks to the wealthy CEOs. When will the Prime Minister stop the delay and the disappointment? When will this government step up and force these CEOs to finally lower their prices?
So here's the thing, Jagmeet. Grocery stores like Loblaws will put about 18 to 20% markup on their product. They end up with a 3% profit margin. Even if you add back in the CEO bonus, the board bonuses, it's about 2.5% more. Is that where you want to cut from? Like, because you can't take more than 3% that they got in the end, right? There's another 2.5–3% that goes to management store bonuses. You can't take those away, right? That's like 5–6 people in every one of Loblaw's stores no longer getting bonuses. So where are you going to cut this money? There's so little that the government can be able to do on this, right? He's just virtual signaling.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our focus is on making making life more affordable and ensuring corporations pay their fair share. The Minister of Innovation
Less
today with the
affordable
CEOs of the
than
large
ever.
grocery chains to reinforce the immediate need to stabilize food prices and improve competition. Indeed, we're introducing changes to competition here in Canada to address the rise in food prices, amongst others. We will, every day, Mr. Speaker, continue to build an economy that works for all Canadians.
Sigh. When is that ever going to happen? Seriously. You're 8 years in. Cluing that maybe you're the problem here. Oh, carbon tax.
He has now been in government for almost 2 years, during which time, by their own admission, both grocery prices and grocery profits have gone up. That's the result they get. And now they're supporting the Prime Minister's plan for a carbon tax that will rise to 61 cents a litre on the farmers who make the food and the truckers who ship the food. Their response to all this is to hold a big photo op today. The Prime Minister claims food will be affordable by Thanksgiving. So, will by Thanksgiving lettuce be back down from its 94% increase because of today's meeting?
Liberals backed themselves into another corner.
The Honourable Minister for Innovation. I'd like to thank the leader
Canada's biggest corporate fascist.
But coming from someone who advocated for crypto as an advice to Canadians, I think Canadians
Who
watching
cares?
at home understand not to follow his advice when it comes to grocery, Mr. Speaker. The answer of Canadians is thanks, but no thanks, Mr. Speaker. We're going to continue
You don't
to
decide for
support
me,
on this line
fascist.
and fight for Canadians at every step of the way.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It's not just one carbon tax, there's a second carbon tax that the Prime Minister wants to impose on the backs of Quebecers. Yes, it applies to Quebecers, to farmers, to truckers in Quebec who deliver our food. And the Bloc supports it and wants to increase it radically, as they've said. This will inflate the price of food.
Of course it will.
Will the Prime Minister heed the call of the Bloc to radically increase the carbon tax on the backs of Quebecers?
It's not really a carbon tax. The clean fuel standard is what they're talking about here. Carbon tax 2.0 is what they're calling it, right? So of course it's going to have an inflationary effect. The biggest difference between it and the carbon tax is at least a portion of that money collected from the carbon tax is coming back to people. Obviously, we get a raw deal out of that too, in my opinion, anyways. Because Canadians are paying more into it than we get back, right? So the government's essentially borrowing our money for free and then only paying back a portion of that money that they owe to us and calling it even. So segment 4 is reducing costs.
Foothills. The thing is, Mr. Speaker, the Liberals can reduce the price of food right now if they
Yeah.
abandon their failed carbon tax.
Absolutely.
Instead of taking any meaningful action, they're having more meaningless meetings. The price of diesel is already up 70 cents a litre, increasing the costs on farmers to produce the food, manufacturers to process it, truckers to haul it, and certainly for Canadians to buy it. When the price of lettuce is up 94%, clearly
Supply
the
side.
Prime Minister's NDP government isn't worth the cost. Will the Prime Minister's big meetings reduce the cost of lettuce by Thanksgiving? Yes or no?
Of course it won't.
Minister of Innovation.
We'll have higher prices with the new taxes they're going to push.
I'd like to thank the member for the question. Instead of talking and talking, Mr. Speaker, they should look at what we've done today. Mr. Speaker, this is the first time in
I just find him ridiculous. Like, this is question period. And he doesn't want them talking and talking, right? This is our democratic system. Like, what do you... I don't understand this guy at all. And I don't even care I call him corporate fascist because he absolutely is. I don't think there's any MP in the House of Commons that is as much as a fascist as Champagne is. Yeah, he wants to give away our tax dollars to corporations, foreign corporations mostly, and that's corporate fascism, right? He wants to tell us what to do. He wants to tell us how, as if we're one big monolithic group, right? That's fascism.
Canadian history country that the grocer have come to Ottawa. Mr. Speaker, we had difficult discussions, but at the end of the day, those are discussions that needed to have in order to stabilize the price of food in Canada, Mr. Speaker. We have been very good with the Prime Minister and the Minister of
Stop
Finance.
increasing carbon taxes.
With them to stabilize prices
Stop
in
making
Canada.
new
That's
taxes.
what Canadians expect at home.
Start working with the other parties. Told them that you don't want them to talk.
The Prime Minister's NDP government, Canadians can't afford to put food on the table, and it's getting worse. The Parliamentary Budget Officer report on Friday stated by 2030, Canadian farmers will pay close to $1 billion in carbon taxes alone. Lettuce is up 94% because of these increases in carbon taxes, and the costs they're putting on farmers, processors, certainly truckers. And you know what? It's Canadians who are paying the price at the grocery store shelf. Now they want to quadruple that tax. How much will Canadians pay for a head of lettuce?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to read for you an extract from a press release from the Canola Growing Association, and which states, "We're pleased to see the clean fuel regulations provide options that will minimize regulatory burden and allow canola to be used to reduce greenhouse gas emissions through biofuel production. Recognition of sustainable practice of Canadian growers to help sequester and store carbon. Agriculturists are in favor of what we're doing, Mr. Speaker.
That's one select group.
Strong and vibrant Canadian economy."
Again, we're not monolithic, right? This is just the Canola Growers Association. And yes, of course, they want there to be more demand for canola, right? They want it to be pushed as biofuel, right? But look at what groups like the Farmers Carbon Alliance, I'm not sure if I got the name exactly right there, but, you know, they've formed because the carbon tax is costing them more money. They can't afford the increase in taxes. It's just such utter nonsense. Segment 5 is Canadians are hurting. Yeah, so many of us are.
Speaker, I'm sure Canadians watching at home are feeling insulted by what they hear from this side, Mr. Speaker.
You don't get to decide.
Canadians are hurting. At a time when this nation needs to come together to fight food price inflation, at a time we call the CEOs to come to Ottawa.
You just said you don't want the Conservatives talking and talking. What is it? Pick a lane.
Every member of this House to work with us, stabilize prices, and help Canadians at a time of need.
So if they can't talk to you, how are you going to work together with them? Because you don't actually want to work together. You just want to think that all Canadians are one big group. And it's nothing like that at all. So again, we're going to go back to the no GST on new housing builds.
That's why I was thrilled when we were able to announce last week we will be getting rid of the GST on apartment construction in Canada to build more homes for Canadians.
Good. You're just wasting that money that you're taking from some other ways anyways.
Mr. Speaker, what's more, we have seen provincial governments follow suit.
I'm sorry, the time is up.
So as I said earlier, I totally expect that the Conservative Party is going to fully support removing this, right? And of course, Jagmeet and the Bloc are most likely to fall in line with the Liberal Party. Segment number 7 is housing half measures.
I find it fascinating to watch the Conservatives' line of questioning because they certainly seem to think that they have the solutions to Canada's housing crisis, but when you actually look at what they're proposing, they're just tinkering around the edges with half measures that won't make a meaningful difference. Mr. Speaker, we are getting rid of the GST on apartment construction in this country, and provincial governments are following suit. We are advancing measures to change the way that cities build houses, so they build them next to transit stations.
Just like the UNWF
we are going to
plan.
require that they build them more densely. We have much more to come over the course of the fall, Mr. Speaker, but if you put our plan against theirs, it'll win 7 days a week.
So 19 housing programs in Canada isn't enough. From a Prime Minister who's once claimed housing is not a federal responsibility. So just ending this out here, like I said at the intro, we've got 2 Conservatives, the new MP from Oxford and the new MP from Portage Lisgar. I just thought it was pretty cool that the Conservatives let them speak on the very first day in the House of Commons. We didn't hear that from the Liberal Party. They also have 2 new MPs through by-elections since the last session.
For Oxford.
Speaker.
The honourable member for Portage Liscombe.
I just cut the two of these in together here. I'm sure there'll be a huge round of applause for the two new Liberals once they do actually get the first time to speak in House Commons. It's, pardon me, somewhat of a tradition. So with that, those are the 8 things that I brought out of the House Commons question period today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope it made your week a little shorter, a little easier to get through some of the stuff that's being said there. I think it's just an opportunity for people to hear everything about the question period all at once. Like I said, through our corporate and independent media, it seems to be more that we just get one chunk and they just focus on that one chunk because that's the article that they're talking about or the story that they're having. Whereas the approach from here, I know there's a couple other YouTubers and whatnot that make videos like this as well. However, they're very partisan specific, whereas I don't mind stepping out and saying, no, Pierre, the NDP are not in government, right? They're not a coalition. They do have an alliance, yes, and they do vote side by side, which is, why he says that, because it's pretty much the way it is. So thanks for watching. Have a good night.